Okay, you get to go first.
So, Marcia Nelson.
Wow, that was very
She
expensive.
asked for my name.
I'm Glenn Nelson. I speak longer than Marcia does.
We raised 2 children who are now living their lives, married, out of the city, doing amazing things. I work as a managing director at an investment bank, and Glenn is a creative, very involved in the arts community and a ghostwriter. I've done lots of different things.
But we're very jaded with all of that. Like, Marcia came home and said, oh yeah, my picture's up in Times Square again. Like they had projected her onto the NASDAQ, whatever. Marcia is currently a primary teacher, which she loves. And I like it too because they have all those goldfish that they give to the kids that I get leftovers for. And I'm currently the steak patriarch.
And then how did you guys meet?
We actually met in college. I was no surprise, I was the president of the Literary Guild and was the brown noser. And Glenn was the student who sat in the front of the classroom and answered all the questions. And at first I didn't really like him because I was annoyed. But we met in English class.
And then like a year ago, she decided that I was okay. And so then, and then both of us came to New York and got married a year after that. And we've been here, are you ready? Almost 40 years. Next
year.
August, it'll be 40 years.
Yeah, 40 years in New York.
What are your guys' favorite parts about living in New York City?
Everything.
How much time do you have?
Theater.
I like that whatever it is that you want to do, you can find somehow a way to do it in the city.
But we still have occasional FOMO because we think we do a lot, and then sometimes we'll come home late at night and somebody's light will be on and we're like, what are they doing? Or the restaurants are still open, like why are people eating at dinner at 11 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock? Like, what's going on? What are we missing out on?
Yeah, that's bad.
And then you mentioned that you were going into the office, and Glenn, you were more of a stay-at-home parent, is that right? So how did you guys decide to make that decision?
Well, the joke that I tell is we flipped a coin. I don't think that was actually true.
It was a mutual decision. And although I wanted to have children, I really loved going to the office and being with people, and it seemed like a no-brainer.
And I'm a writer, so that can be from anywhere. So Marcia went to business school to get an MBA, and she was still working full time, and we had little kids at home. We would put the kids to sleep, and she would go into the bathroom and study.
I would get up to feed the baby in the middle of the night, and then I would have between feedings, between 1 and 4 a.m. was the only time I had a 3-hour block. So
it sounds like a sacrifice, but if you want things really, you make them happen.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, it just didn't. You just did it. Like, how did you do whatever you did in your life? You just do different things at different times in your life. So.
And then, Glenn, you are involved in the Center of Latter-day Saints Art. How did you get involved in that?
7 years ago, Richard Bushman and I founded an organization that it exists to, let's see, what does it do? It exists to advocate for all the creative artists in the church all over the world. And it's just super, super fun. I get to do things like put on festivals and concerts and publish books and do museum exhibitions, and I can't imagine anything cooler. Like, I love the church and I especially love its people.
How do you feel like your environment contributes to your faith or your testimony?
It's a crazy world no matter where you live, but sometimes New York City can be overwhelming, and knowing that I have that grounded place, whether it's, saying a personal prayer or singing a hymn. And I also think there's a huge opportunity for service here, which is very much a part of my testimony. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, that seems very logical and sane and good.
Yeah, you can't use that answer though. You have to.
I can't say ditto.
No.
You're the nicest person I know. It's disgusting. No, I find living in the city is very focusing regarding faith, but I just really like meeting people, and we shouldn't say this out loud.
Do you really like meeting people?
At church. The joke on that is Marcia is so good meeting people. Like, she'll get into an elevator, and by the time she gets to the lobby, she knows all of their names.
And where their kids went to school.
I'm sort of the opposite. I find that not repulsive, but I don't see the point in it. But church, though, is a different thing, and I really do like meeting lots of people. And I found that the church, in addition to the belief aspect of it and the cultural aspect of it, I think the church is an excellent blueprint for people who just simply want to be a little bit better.
Amazing, thank you.
Awesome.
No, you're awesome, except for the lipstick that I just now smeared all over.
Sorry.
Do you have
Is there any
any
RIP questions?
Mi nombre es Margarita López.
Díganos un poquito acerca de todos sus hijos.
Samuel, él tiene 24 años. Nefi tiene 22 y mi hija Katia tiene 30. Ya.
¿Y qué hacen ellos en la vida?
Sammy está yendo al college, terminando su college. Nefi está en la universidad, ya la va a terminar y Katia se casó y tengo 2 nietos. Es muy bonito porque ellos ahora tienen la oportunidad de poder lograr sus carreras, de estudiar, de poder crecer como personas y abrirse camino en la vida.
¿Cuál es su lugar favorito en todo Nueva York?
El templo es mi lugar favorito. Me da paz y tranquilidad. Nos encanta ir mucho al cine y por ahí ir a comer a un restaurante en familia. Los museos, Broadway, dar los viajes en el ferry. Hay mucho que ver, los museos, me encantan.
¿Cómo fue su infancia creciendo en México?
Oh, mi infancia fue una infancia muy bonita. Me crié con mis abuelos, ellos me dieron mucho amor. A mí me encantaba subirme a los árboles. Teníamos muchos árboles frutales. Teníamos ríos cerca de la casa. Yo me subía a los aguacates, cortaba los mangos, me subía a los árboles de guayaba. A mí me encantaba mucho vivir allá, me encantaba ayudar a mi abuela. Mi abuela no sabía leer y ella le daban llamamientos en la iglesia, pero ella me jalaba a mí. Ella siempre me llevaba a mí a sus reuniones porque ella no sabía leer ni escribir. Y yo iba con ella a las reuniones, a las visitas. Yo iba a hacer todo con ella y entonces aprendí mucho, mucho de ella y fue lo que me encantó hacer de niña. Yo andaba siempre con ella. Y me regalaron un tesoro muy grande. El tesoro es el Evangelio de nuestro Señor Jesucristo. Y lo voy a llevar toda mi vida conmigo.
¿Cómo fue para usted cuando llegó a Nueva York por primera vez?
Fue un choque cultural muy fuerte porque era todo nuevo para mí, era como volver a nacer. El idioma, las personas, el ambiente, todo era diferente. Pero estoy en esta ciudad, me encantó y aquí sigo y creo aquí me voy a quedar. Las oportunidades son muchas, la salud es muy buena ahora. Uno puede tener comunicación con todas las personas que están alrededor de uno. El ser neoyorquina me ayuda a poder ver las necesidades de las personas que están cerca de mí y necesitan de mí.
Ha pasado por muchos desafíos de salud en su vida. ¿Podría contarnos un poco sobre eso y de dónde obtiene su fortaleza?
Yo tuve cáncer. Fue un tiempo muy difícil, pero gracias a mi Padre Celestial yo pude salir adelante. El cáncer me dio en mi estómago, pero lo importante de toda esta prueba es que mi Padre Celestial siempre estuvo cerca de mí. Él me llenó de amor con todos los miembros de la iglesia, porque estoy bien agradecida por cada miembro de la iglesia que estuvo conmigo. Mi obispo, los hermanos, las hermanas, los hombres jóvenes, las mujeres jóvenes. Yo tuve visitas de todas las organizaciones de la iglesia. Me fueron a ver al hospital, me vinieron a ver a mi casa. Pero creo que todo esto es gracias al Evangelio de nuestro Señor Jesucristo. Pude ver en ellos el amor hacia mí y el amor hacia mi familia, porque siempre estuvieron pendientes de mí y agradezco a mi Padre Celestial el poder ser parte del Evangelio de Jesucristo. No tengo familia aquí, pero yo sé que así como estoy yo, muchos en esta tierra, en este mundo, no tienen familia donde están, pero la iglesia donde se encuentra, nosotros tenemos una gran familia. Entonces, la iglesia es mi segunda familia. Sí, estoy muy agradecida.
¿Y cómo se siente ahora?
Ahora me siento muy bien, mi salud la he recuperado. Trato de ser lo más positiva posible y de ver siempre mis bendiciones. Tengo un testimonio muy fuerte de mi Salvador, que yo sé que Él sufrió, entonces Él sufrió lo que yo sufrí, entonces yo sé que todo va a estar bien al final porque Él está con nosotros, Él nunca nos va a dejar.
I'm Tara Bench. I have lived in the city for 26 years. I came right out of college and started my life in food publishing. And right now I run the blog tarateaspoon.com. And I write cookbooks. I was drawn to food really young. I loved cooking with my mom, whether it was weeknight dinner or something on the weekends. And I was always in the kitchen with my mom and grandmas and aunts. And I loved the result of bringing people together around food and sharing those moments. And so when it came time to go to school and pick a career, I was encouraged by my parents to choose something to study that I really enjoyed doing. So I went into culinary arts, and then I was able to create a career out of that.
What brought you to New York?
I had just finished college, but I had to do an internship to get my degree. And so I called every magazine I could in the country that had a test kitchen, and I said, can I come and be your intern? Only one test kitchen manager said, well, you can come and interview, and that was Susan at Martha Stewart magazine. And so I flew out here to New York and got the internship and came to New York, and then I stayed. By the time my internship was done, they kind of had trained me in every move I should make as an employee, and so they hired me freelance as a food editor.
So what was your next step after that?
So I stayed there for about 6 years and worked my way up. And I kind of hit a ceiling, which means I wasn't going to get promoted anymore, and there was not a lot of room for growth for me. So I just freelanced, which means I just took contract jobs, and I did food styling and a little bit of recipe development for different companies.
What was the process like in transitioning from those projects to making your own cookbooks?
I love publishing. I love the idea of having something physical, whether it's a magazine or a book in your hands, and looking at pictures. So I've always wanted to do a cookbook. The pictures behind me are from my second cookbook, Delicious Gatherings. And my first cookbook was Live Life Deliciously. It's got my face on it. And this book was sort of all of my favorites, family favorites, recipes that I'd created for magazines over the years that I tweaked and I modernized. But that turned into this, and now I have 2 cookbooks. I love using fun spices and different ingredients, especially living in the city. We can get our hands on anything. And so I love going to the markets and the stores and getting amazing produce in the farmers markets. It's super hard for me to pick a favorite recipe. But I mean, the one that rises to the top, right, that I just can make in my sleep is my chocolate chip cookies. And they make people happy, they make me happy, so that's one of my favorites. I love the culture in New York. I love going to museums, I love going to the Philharmonic and concerts and the opera and things like that. I just love being able to get out and see other people's talents.
And how has your faith evolved on this journey of just like becoming a vlogger and all those things?
So my faith, I think, has been strengthened so much by the diversity of the church in New York, the people that I've been able to get to know and worship with. It led me to think about my beliefs more and how I wanted to be as a person. And so my faith in the gospel really played a big part in that, because you can get distracted by so many things in this big city. And by being able to worship with other strong people and faithful people and unique people that were still being themselves and different than the norm, but close to God, I was able to strengthen my faith and still be my own person and be who I wanted to be and continue my relationship with God.
Linda and I grew up on the same country block in Lehi, Utah. Our homes were about a mile apart. We both attended the Lehi 4th Ward. We met in primary. In the ensuing years, I became quite obnoxious. She didn't. Later in life, I changed. She got more beautiful, and we were married 20 years later. In 1975, we moved to New York City for employment. We came here with 3 kids in tow, and over the next 11 years, we added 5 more. In 1975, our oldest child was 5 years old, and our last child was born in 1986. When you have 8 kids in a small apartment, they have to get along with one another. At that time, there was only one chapel in Manhattan. It was on 81st Street near Amsterdam Avenue. We learned that the church was 3 months away from opening a new chapel at Lincoln Center. We hadn't intended to rent, but when we walked into the apartment on the 30th floor, Linda had a Brigham Young moment. The Spirit said, "This is the place." So we signed a lease, and we've been there ever since. Next spring will be our 50th year. I've probably been in New York longer than most of the people who live here. We have a fantastic view of the Angel Moroni out of our window. And it's a reminder that we're in a safe place next to a temple. When we moved here, there were a lot of old people. Primary was very small, hardly any teenagers. All of the wards in Manhattan and the Bronx had a combined young men and young women's program.
What would you say is your favorite part about the Upper West Side?
2 things. The commute to church when we were not having a temple renovation, and walking across the street for music at Lincoln Center.
What do you love so much about listening to music?
I discovered music when my father bought a J.B. Lansing stereo system in 1958. I've been collecting vinyl records since I was in high school. My collection numbers over 10,000. No, they're not in my apartment in New York City. They're in a man cave in a home in Utah. The one that I listen to most is Handel's Messiah. I love Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique. And I love all of the Beethoven symphonies. And my favorite go-to-sleep music is Bach's Goldberg Variations.
Does your wife share a love for music as well?
She does. She's an accomplished flutist and pianist and organist. In fact, she was ward organist for years and years, both here in New York as well as other places that we've lived.
Can you mention what your career has been like? Like, what do you do for work?
In the nearly 50 years that we've been here, I was chief financial officer of 4 different companies. I was also on the board of directors of Utah Bank, and for a decade was chairman of the board. The last 25 years of my career before I retired, I was the plan administrator in liquidating Chapter 11 bankruptcies. I did 6 of those.
Do you think that having a gospel-based marriage and gospel-based family has helped to keep your family
Oh, absolutely.
united?
life in the Church of Jesus Christ, following gospel principles, works. It makes me happy. I think I understand the gospel. I know what my focus should be, and I do it. And I'm a happy person living the commandments and doing good in the world.